You're listening to Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family. Welcome to Sleep Stories for Equestrians. I'm your host, Ashley Winch. We're so happy you're here to relax and unwind. If you fall asleep and miss the story, we will recap it at the beginning of the next episode. We've also selected and edited these stories for ultimate relaxation, removing any stressful bits without affecting the story's integrity, so you can focus on drifting off to sleep. With that, let's settle down and prepare for our story. The gates are closed, the horses sleep, the day's work done, the chores complete. Now let us rest, our bodies and minds. Drift off to sleep and close your eyes. It's time for us to turn down for the night. Now let's breathe in, breathe out, and turn off the light. One more time. Breathe out, breathe in. Now, let us begin. A freckle-faced boy hurried down the aisle and ran up the steps to the stage. "I'd like to try," he said, grinning. He straddled the pony and picked up the reins. "Giddy up." Cricket obeyed his rider and trotted toward the back of the stage. The audience applauded. "Ride him, cowboy," someone shouted from the gallery. The freckle-faced boy was pleased with himself. Cricket was easy to ride. He waved to the audience. Captain John snapped his fingers. Cricket leaped into the air, put his head down, and humped his back. Taken by surprise, the freckle-faced boy sailed over the pony's head and landed in a pile of soft blankets. Crestfallen, he picked himself up and looked at Cricket. He scratched his head in astonishment. He had been thrown so quickly he couldn't figure out just how it happened. The audience laughed and applauded as he returned to his seat. Cricket walked to the footlights and bowed. The audience roared with amusement. Cricket shook his head and neighed an invitation to the next rider. A little tow-headed girl ran down the aisle. "Well, well," chuckled Captain John. "So you think you can ride the pony?" He placed her on Cricket's sturdy back. "I think I can, sir," she drawled. "Giddy up, Cricket." She dug her heels into Cricket's ribs. Cricket trotted to the back of the stage. He never lost sight of Captain John's hand. He saw the fingers snap. Quick as a flash, he humped his back and jumped sideways. But his rider stuck. Her strong legs gripped hard. Again, Cricket jumped and humped. He landed stiff-legged after each leap in the air. His rider's short skirts flew up in her face. Cricket jumped forwards and sideways. The little girl's head snapped back with every jump. Her hair flew in all directions. Stick to him, the audience encouraged the little girl. Cricket seemed discouraged. He stopped bucking and trotted toward the captain. Flushed by her success and the applause of the crowd, the little girl smiled at the audience. The prize was within her grasp. Suddenly, Cricket whirled and stood straight up on his hind legs. Caught unprepared, the tow-headed girl lost her grip and slid off the pony's back. She got to her feet quickly and ran off the stage. She received great applause from the audience as she took her seat. Cricket walked to the footlights. He whinnied and looked at the crowd beyond. Cricket enjoyed this part of the pony act. A small boy ambled bashfully to the center of the stage. "I'd like to try for that $5, Captain." The boy rolled his eyes and looked at Cricket. "All right, up you go." Captain John handed the reins to the rider. Cricket tried all his tricks, but the boy stuck on. Cricket broke into a run. The boy grinned broadly. Cricket had given up. The $5 was his. Close to the footlights, Cricket stopped suddenly. He humped his back with his head between his legs. Cricket almost stood on his head. The boy was taken by surprise. He grabbed for something to hold onto as he somersaulted over the pony's head. He landed in the lap of a very surprised drummer. There was a great shout of laughter as the boy's foot hit the bass drum, a resounding thump. "Doggone, that pony sure can buck." The boy walked slowly up the aisle to his seat amidst the applause of the crowd. Cricket was a great success, and Captain John bowed his thanks to the audience. Cricket bowed too. Sometimes Captain John and his pony act stayed at the same theater for a week, but more often they played the first 3 days at one theater and the last 4 days at another. The ponies were carried from theater to theater in a specially built auto truck. Larry drove the truck, and he usually found some place to sleep near the ponies in the stable. "I like to be near my ponies in case they need me," he said. One night, they were playing in a small New England town. Cricket and the other ponies were stabled in a big barn not far from the theater. In addition to the ponies, there were 30 or more horses belonging to a milk company stabled in the barn. The regular night stableman was glad to have someone to keep him company. While Larry was feeding and bedding down the ponies in a large box stall, the stableman went out to get himself a cup of coffee. Larry looked around for a place to sleep. The restless stamping and occasional whinnies in the stable would have disturbed the sleep of anyone who had not grown up with horses. Larry's ear was quick to detect any sound that meant trouble, but the ordinary stable noises never bothered him. The barn was drafty and the night was cold. Larry shivered. He looked for his blankets, then remembered that he had left them at the theater. Fortunately, it was only a short walk from the barn to the theater. Larry hurried after his blankets. Larry gave the ponies a good breakfast of bran and oats from the bags Captain John carried in the truck. Cricket enjoyed his breakfast. From town to city, from small theater to large, the pony act moved week after week. There are so many new things to be seen. One morning, Cricket came out of the stable to find the air full of swirling snowflakes and the street hidden under a white blanket. He looked at the people hurrying by with their coat collars turned up to their ears. When they got to the theater, Cricket shook his head and mane to get rid of the clinging snow. Winter had set in earnest. The streets were covered with ice, and Cricket stepped along very carefully as he followed Larry from one stable to the theater. Another morning, during Christmas week, Captain John came to the stable earlier than usual. Cricket whinnied. He had finished his pan of oats, but he had turned his head and looked expectantly at the hand hidden in Captain John's pocket. He was not disappointed, for out came a large piece of sugar. "Here you are, Cricket. A little extra treat because there's a little extra work for you this week." Cricket accepted the sweet. He held it on his tongue a while and then crunched it with his strong teeth. "They're putting on a circus in the toy department of that big department store across from the theater, Larry," said Captain. "And the store manager wants us to bring Cricket over for a short time each morning to do his bucking act. Put on his new blanket. We've got to hurry." Thank you for joining us on tonight's episode of Sleep Stories for Equestrians. Now, close your eyes and allow this gentle music to carry you off to dreamland.